Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast. Introducing your host for this evening first. He is the host with the most from the West Coast, the Bay-Area Brawler, Skyler Greenberg. And his partner, he has colonized, energized, and revolutionized the podcasting wrestling world today. Your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, one and all, to the only place you can find the hottest, smarkiest action on the planet. The Court-Martail Podcast, the podcast made by Smarks for Smarks. I am your Colonial Smark, Sean McCarty, and here we are today, and I'm normally accompanied by a good friend of mine, the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour, the Bay-Area Brawler, Skyler Greenberg, but he unfortunately couldn't make it today because he is dealing with an unfathomable amount of paperwork still from Keebler Elf transgressions past. But I am not here alone, because with me today is the monster spillin', weaker than Krillin, PC villain, Keebler killer himself. He's the kind of man who sees a sign that says "say no to crack" and it reminds him to pull his jeans up. Ladies and gentlemen, your friend and mine, Mr. JoshAgeddon.
Help! This isn't JoshAgeddon. This is the last remaining Keebler elf that kept me in his closet. I broke out and oh god!
I assume he either just dissolved him or turned him into some sort of blended beverage.
No, I shot him in the face with a gun. Sorry about that, everybody.
That was a quiet gun. You must have a silencer on it.
Yeah, it was very quiet. But that won't be a problem anymore. So I'm glad to be here. More lawsuits, I'm sure.
Well, you know, but here's what we decided to do today. Because Skyler wasn't going to be around, we decided to change up the tone of this particular show. So today, it's the unfiltered, unscripted, uncensored, and unstructured episode of the Court-Martail Podcast, where JoshAgeddon and I are just going to talk about some fun stuff. We do have a match of the week. It's not going to be Barry Windham. We got to save Barry Windham for when Skyler's back. So we decided to give you pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And we're going to start, and I feel like we need to talk about the guy we're going to spotlight to talk about the topic. So The topic today, our big topic is Vince McMahon has an ability to turn wrestlers who have no business being in a wrestling ring. He takes these people who have got a level of charisma, and that's all that they've really got. And he will turn them into stars, but dear God, are they the absolute drizzling shitballs. And these wrestlers, it's not just one instance. That's the thing, Josh, again. It's not just like there's one of these. There's several instances of these people coming in to the fray.
I have one right off the top of my head, and he's going to be one of the people we're talking about, especially when we discuss our match of the week, which Skyler, in his absence, says, why don't you guys talk about this one specifically to get back at me a little bit? I feel like this was intentional.
You know,
and
isn't it funny that the last time that you were here and it was just you and me, I'm pretty sure I gave you John Cena and the Great Khali. And
yes.
now Skyler tags you out, and here you go, another John Cena match with another one of your favorite people.
This was premeditated.
Well, because he couldn't make it because he had to go do all that paperwork. He's going to be up for, several hours on end. This is 2 a.m. paperwork.
Also, speaking of the whole Keebler elf running joke that we have,
yes,
I made an entire video about that.
Which was hysterically funny.
And I put it on YouTube, and YouTube took it down.
Well, because they didn't want the Keebler elves. They obviously have an image to protect, and we were tarnishing that image.
How many of these fuckers do I have to devour before I can just do whatever I want?
There's a lot of them. There are a lot of them. They're all in the trees, man. They're in the trees. But speaking of tree-like people and people who move around about as quickly as a tree, we're going to talk about him more in the spotlight, but like Braun Strowman is one of these people.
He is a human int.
When he came in to, what was it, 2016?
No, it was 2015.
Oh my God, it was that early? That dude was greener than grass.
The first time I remember seeing him was at Clash of Champions 2015, when it was like a 6-man tag team match, Randy Orton, Chris Jericho, and someone versus the Wyatt family, and Braun was either in that match or on the apron.
I think it was just the two of them, wasn't it? Wasn't it a 2-on-3? And then Braun just like did that weird. We might as well just call this a spotlight. Unstructured episode, folks. We're just gonna go all over the place. So when Braun Strowman hit that, like, remember that cross-armed like submission he was trying to do, where he basically is like, "I love you to death."
Yeah, it was like that that like Uranagi choke, except since he's tall, he would just practically hang them.
But it never looked. But it never looked like they were being hung. It just looked like they were just being hugged to death.
Well, that's because Braun Strowman, the theme of this show, Braun Strowman's not a very good wrestler.
And it was very obvious. It was very obvious in a lot of his matches, because the amount that they let him do was so minimal for so long.
Do you remember after he had that match with Chris Jericho went like on record or some podcast, and he was like, Braun Strowman, he tries very hard, and he's a nice guy.
And I gave him this participation sticker.
Yeah.
Right before. And then Braun took that ball and ran with it. And
remember when he was supposed to face The Undertaker?
Yeah, and wasn't it Taker who shot that down?
I wonder why.
I'm pretty sure Taker was like, "Yeah, nah, I'm good." And
I don't want to fight Treebeard.
And instead, they gave him to Roman Reigns, who absolutely needed a guy like Braun Strowman, and considering where his career was at the time.
Yeah.
And we had all the and all those. Remember James Ellsworth became a star because of Brown Snowstorm? I'm gonna bungle up his name all night, folks.
The Brown Strong Man.
Yeah, Braun Stupid, as we found out from his match with Shane McMahon. But James Ellsworth, the man with two hands who could fight and can win, and then just got absolutely pulverized by Braun Strowman. And then somehow Ellsworth had more success.
Ellsworth was in a WWE title match.
Before Braun Strowman. That's incredible. That is amazing. Although, to be fair, Ellsworth did know how to work. He was just super small and had the face that looked like he was a crossbreed between a greyhound and a pug and a human being. Like,
yeah. Hashtag no chin music.
That's right. And what a time to be a part of SmackDown.
Yeah.
That was
pretty fun during that time.
But in any event, Braun he's one of those guys that Vince just sees the charisma in, and the only reason that he got over was that he screamed Braun at the top of his lungs, and everybody could do that at the beginning. It was one of the few theme songs for any wrestler in the past probably 10 years since Jim Johnson was fired that I actually really liked. But that's what they would do. Vince knew how to smoke and mirror wrestlers with other things, like the Ultimate Warrior. Shall we bring up the Ultimate Warrior?
Oh, dear God, yes.
The Ultimate Warrior was two things: blowing himself up, sprinting to the ring, shaking the ropes, and oh wait, that's it.
No selling the pedigree.
And no selling everything. And then making absolutely unintelligible promos that were just so steroided up that everyone's just like, I don't know what this guy's talking about, but I like it. It's just, he's intense. It's like
my dream match is like 1997 or 98 Ultimate Warrior versus 2015 Braun Strowman.
Oh God. Please do not involve gasoline this time. For God's sakes.
Braun Strowman's in the mirror. Ultimate Warrior's in the mirror and Braun Strowman's looking around.
Yeah, dear God. I feel like Braun Strowman would just try to like choo-choo his way through the mirror.
He'd punch the mirror.
And yeah, he would. He'd punch the mirror. And then the projection of the Ultimate Warrior would still be there on the wall, and then the whole thing would look completely fake. But
oh God, imagine like Alexa Bliss's doll versus the Ultimate Warrior, just them constantly switching places with the mirror.
Oh, good great Jesus!
Just taking turns scaring. They'd be a tag team. They'd take turns scaring their opponents behind mirrors.
Well, but it's not like the Ultimate Warrior would be that. I feel like he'd be more afraid of Alexa Bliss than anything else, considering his feud with Papa Shango. Because he's familiar with ooze coming out of his head. There is one. He is familiar, so he would be right at home with Alexa Bliss. He'd know immediately once that black goo came up. He's like, "Oh, I've been through this. Hold up." But again, have you watched an Ultimate Warrior match and actually tried to like pick apart the wrestling?
No, I have not. Not really.
You know why? Because there's no wrestling to be fucking found. That's why.
There's nothing to pick apart.
It's literally just clotheslines, rope shaking, and falling down and roll. His selling wasn't even good because he never sold. But when he did, it was always bad. You know, there was only one time that I ever felt like Hogan was the better technical wrestler. And that was against the Ultimate Warrior. And
one of the two truly fantastic matches Warrior's ever had, because his match with Randy Savage at WrestleMania 7 was also really good.
And that was really...
They did 18 trillion finishing moves to each other.
Yeah, well, and that's... Ultimate Warrior is really one of those guys, and that's another thing that we could honestly talk about is like the amount of finishers and matches. Really, it's because of people like Braun Strowman and the Ultimate Warrior, and to use another guy who was the drizzling shits in the ring that got unfathomably over, Goldberg.
This is the part of the show where Sean gets possessed by the spirit of Skyler Greenberg.
Although you have to give Eric Bischoff credit for making that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact remains. William Regal got fired from WCW for trying to have a match with Goldberg. That ought to tell you what the ability level of Goldberg really is.
Triple threat Iron Man match. Ultimate Warrior versus Braun Strowman versus Goldberg.
Oh, Christ almighty. There is
12-hour Iron Man match.
War would be blown up before he got into the ring.
The only way to get out of the match is to accidentally injure yourself.
I feel like Strowman would have to win that.
Fatal four-way. Throw Ahmed Johnson in there, too.
Oh, good gravy. I feel bad, because Ahmed Johnson honestly wasn't that bad, but as soon as he started getting hurt, he was just, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
He lost a lot of steam, because he never quite recovered from those injuries. Plus, he got kind of bitter about the backstage. I think he kind of like Iggy'd himself out of a position. And then came back as Big T in Nitro because WCW was doing the more important angles, like making sure Booker T could not use the letter T, and fought a match over it and lost.
And then went on to wrestle Edge over a shampoo commercial.
Yes. And now, look, but you know what? Commercials and videos are always destined to be in Booker T's wheelhouse, because now he's a Bad Bunny video.
Professional wrestling,
so
ladies and gentlemen.
We have way to advance, Booker T. Way to advance. But Booker T knows how to wrestle.
Yes.
But these guys, what is it about them that is so captivating to people, even if it's just destroying them for a couple minutes and leaving?
That's pretty much it. Because a lot of wrestling fans are just like, do cool things and I'll like you.
Yeah.
There are not very many wrestling fans who are like, this is how a match works. And this is how I like my wrestling to be. I like it to be a certain way.
Yeah.
A lot of wrestling fans are just do a bunch of cool things.
Yeah.
Like overly cartoon, like in an overly cartoonish fashion, knock over an ambulance.
Yeah. Oh my God. We'll talk about that more in the spotlight, about the feats of strength. And that's another thing too. You never notice, like, there's nobody Bret Hart size getting pushed like that who doesn't know what they're doing. It's always these behemoth people who have the look. Because I think that's 3/4 of it. Goldberg looked like a huge physical specimen. Braun Strowman, love him or hate him, looked like a Haas. The Ultimate Warrior was more roided up than the Roid Runner, which is like the X-rated version of the Road Runner.
if you poked the Ultimate Warrior with a needle in the wrong spot, he would literally explode.
Yeah. So this is just kind of on a side tangent of steroids. One of my favorite stories that the Click ever told was when the Warlord was trying to get Shawn Michaels to inject another thing of steroids into his ass. And he shoves the needle in, and Shawn's pushing and pushing, and the needle won't go down. And he finally pulls it out and goes, "Dude, I think you're full." And you can go on. If you don't want to hear this from me, if you want to hear the actual story, both Kevin Nash and Scott Hall tell that story on separate shoots.
It's like in a Superman movie when he gets hurt and the doctor tries to jam him with the needle and it just like breaks.
It's like the first Captain America.
Yeah.
You know? That's basically the whole deal. So
that is amazing.
So yeah, so that's just a fun little side story. But you know, but the look really
you're full.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good line. And you know, I would, you know, with the Click, I wouldn't necessarily believe it unless both two people told it, because they traveled in groups. So I'm like, okay, that has to be real if both of them have told this story. But in any event, but it's the look that gets these people over.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the, you know, I'm going to date myself here, but when Crusher Darsow was first starting out in Mid-South, he was like this lumberjack. He was just Barry Darsow, who's the guy who was Smash and Demolition or Repo Man or that's pretty much it, or Crusher Darsow as you know him. But Repo Man, think of Repo Man, because that's for whatever reason what he's known for most. And this guy, he was literally a lumberjack, and he was beefy. He was real big and beefy, but his matches were literally just him doing 2 punches and then doing like remember when Bobby Lashley used to get people, it's almost basically a torture rack, but without the big frame, it's just on one side.
Yeah,
and just
like a Canadian backbreaker.
Yeah, just like wrenching him over his shoulder, and that would it'd be all of 2 minutes, and he'd cut a mangled promo that was just straight up awful. But people loved him because he was big and he made big men go boom.
Yes.
And that's
big men break people.
Yes, and wrestling's not that complicated, folks. But you could definitely tell it's because of what Vince McMahon's style of wrestling of the land of the giants that these people who can't do a whole lot can get away with a lot if they have other things that can make up for it.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't mean they won't be seen through by today's audience, and us most of all.
You'd think, but then 2017, Braun Strowman comes along.
Yeah. Oh, and here's the other problem too. Just to kind of put a pin on this topic, or at least a period on the sentence. It's got to the point where these people are causing problems. These people who get over like that because they're hurting people. Even today, I mean, we look at what could have happened in that match between Goldberg and The Undertaker. And everybody wanted that match, but Goldberg, who never really knew how to wrestle to begin with properly, you know,
Do you remember? I got shit for not wanting that match because everyone was like, "We want Goldberg versus The Undertaker," and I'm like, "They're both old now," and they're like, "You're stupid." And then we had the match, and it was awful.
Well, that match. Well, in all fairness, too, even with those two in their prime, that match would have sucked.
Yeah,
because it's Goldberg. And for some reason, Goldberg really couldn't work with big guys. If you like with the monstrous people, it was never really in his wheelhouse, you know, unless it was a 5-minute big move or a minute and 16 seconds or whatever it was with Brock Lesnar. But when it came to big guys, the longer it went, the worse it got. I remember that triple threat match that Kane, and Triple H had. Or, as I should more call it, the match where Triple H and Kane had a match and Goldberg was there a couple times. Because he and Triple H could work because Triple H was a weight class kind of a little bit lesser and could move around more for Goldberg. But Kane couldn't really hide Goldberg's weaknesses. And it's because Goldberg kind of sucked.
Yeah.
His match with Jericho was decent in 2003. What'd you think of Goldberg in 2003?
Parts of him I liked. Weird thing, a lot of people really hate his booking in 2003, like where he lost the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah.
I'm like the only person that didn't mind him losing the Elimination Chamber because he got hit in the head with a sledgehammer. Maybe if you hit him, he hit him with a sledgehammer once and then pinned him. Maybe if he kicked out and then you hit him again and then pinned him, it would have been better. But I would not have just immediately given him the championship.
Yeah, especially because a lot of people already, and you didn't notice it at the time, but in WWE, now that WCW was gone and a lot of that audience was gone, more people were starting to see, okay, what is WWE gonna do with these guys who were stars? And let's go going over that past year. Steiner went from a title match with Triple H, which was bad, to feuding with Test over literally owning Stacy Keibler, to being banned from WWE forever, pretty much.
Yeah.
Booker T was in a racist storyline and then got beaten flat at WrestleMania by Triple H. I'm not saying that he's the reason. I think he was just the person that Vince used. Kevin Nash showed up and got a disqualification win and then a Hell in a Cell title loss, and then got his head shaved and then disappeared for pretty much ever until he showed up to ruin CM the Summer of Punk, along with Alberto Del Rio, but let's not get into that.
Yeah.
And everybody else, who else was left? Sting never showed up, but look what happened to Sting. So at that point, people were already starting to sour on the proposition of what WWE was doing on Raw going forward. And when Goldberg got there, if he had won the title immediately, it might have given some hope, but you knew, I think people would have seen through it and soured on it if it happened too fast.
But again, a lot of people are like, oh, but this was also during like the Triple H reign of terror, and everyone was like, oh, Triple H is just beating everyone. This is boring. So.
Well, I also don't think Triple H had that much to do with it, though. I mean, sure, he had this backstage influence, but you know that it was Vince who really wanted all these people beaten flat, and he's the one who wanted Triple H, who was now officially married to Stephanie.
But what I'm saying is, you either have Triple H retain the title and everyone's like, oh, God, Triple H is still champion and he just beat Goldberg, or Goldberg immediately wins the title and everyone's annoyed with that. So you don't really win either way.
No, and I think that, honestly, in a lot of ways, WWE did Goldberg a disservice by honestly not doing what they did in 2016 and just having him show up and just beat The Rock flat, fine. And then beat a bunch of schlubs, do these 2-minute victories, because the thing they did with Goldberg, his bread and butter was working like within 5 minutes. And they put him in 20-minute matchups from basically the off. And that was never going to be what Goldberg was going to be capable of doing. And that's why that Elimination Chamber, how do you have him win that Elimination Chamber on that basis?
Yeah.
It's like, it's tough. It's just, but these people, this is why it'd be nice to have wrestlers who knew how to wrestle and could talk and had a good look. Instead of trying to mask, the wrestling should be the part that's toyed with the least as far as the safety is concerned. And that's really what became the problem.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, but such it is. It's wild that these people were over and now we're looked at as some of the best, but history will eventually catch up with you. But this man certainly never got the chance. It's time for a match that I know that JoshAgeddon is going to have so many fantastically charming things to say about, and we might get to that
many 4-letter words
as we get into the as we mentioned, the uncensored part of this program. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for that match of the week. Roll that intro.
What time is it?
That's right, folks. I said unstructured, so you only get half an intro. So now we get.
Don, you can't. You need to stop blue balling your audience.
This is my show, sir, that you were tagged in on, and now we're going rogue. You
promised them Skyler, and you give them me. You promised them an intro, you cut it in half. What are you doing, sir?
I'm having an unfiltered, uncensored, unstructured show, as we said from the off. And if there's anybody who has no room to complain, it is the man sitting across from me at the table. And speaking of tables and how pointless it is to have things that could obviously cause a disqualification used in plain sight of the referee before the disqualification, it is Braun Strowman versus John Cena, two of JoshAgeddon's favorite wrestlers of all time, on the Mount Rushmore of JoshAgeddonville, has naked photos of both of them on his wall that he licks the abs of before bed. What did you think about this match?
A little bit lower.
I bet a little bit lower. What did you think about this match, sir?
They have abs on their penises.
They have 12 packs.
This match, honestly, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. It was just Strowman had the heat on Cena forever. Cena had a few moves here and there, and then a disqualification that made no sense.
Well, that's a good way to sum it up.
And there was the funniest part of the match was John Cena. Like Michael Cole, of course, whenever John Cena's in a match, he's like the greatest wrestler of all time, and then John Cena throws a absolutely horrendous drop kick, and then Braun Strowman with his own drop kick that looks a million times better.
I saw that, and I was like, God, has John Cena's drop kick ever looked any good? Like, name me one instance. Yeah.
One time, and that was the match with CM Punk at SummerSlam 2011. And even then it looked a little weird looking, but it looked like it hurt.
Yes. But most of the time, it's one leg up near the top of the chest, one leg near the abdomen, and then he's so focused on rotating that he just does not get the look.
Dude, there was a remember the six-pack challenge at Night of Champions 2010 with Cena, Edge, Orton, Jericho, Sheamus, and Wade Barrett?
Yes, I do.
There's a point in the match where John Cena throws a dropkick at Edge, not on Edge, at Edge. It maybe hit Edge's elbow, and Edge had to bump for it anyway.
Well, at least it wasn't Evil Uno who got a hurricanrana and then ran to the ring post like 15 feet to take the bump.
Oh God.
Poor Edge. But the problem, that's why I always laughed whenever Cena would throw a drop kick at Orton. I'm like, really? Of all the people you're going to throw a drop kick to, you're going to throw a drop kick to the guy who literally has maybe the best drop kick in the history of pro wrestling, modern pro wrestling.
When he threw that drop kick at Edge right across the ring, Randy Orton gave someone else a drop kick, and it actually hit him in the face.
Yeah. Because
and it's just like how to and how not to in the same picture.
That's right. That's probably why they were so charismatic together. We're Cena and Orton. This is what not to do.
At least Cena didn't try to do a Hurricane Rana where he landed on his neck in this match.
Or a springboard stunner.
Oh,
Dear, yeah, that was a fun little phase that Cena did. Even Steve Austin was like, John, stop. It was, yeah. But my favorite part of this match was the guy who looked like Jesus with the Jesus t-shirt in the front row. I was like, this guy is having a good time. And I like this guy. And dear God, was it so obvious that John Cena was leading this match from start to finish?
Yes.
Braun Strowman looked afraid when he looked lost, and he's just standing around. And it was just literally every time he was just watching Cena kind of literally flagellate around, looking around, doing the duck, kind of get the reaction from the crowd, the holding up, the getting his hands ready, kind of measuring Braun Strowman. John and Braun was sitting there like, oh, where are you going? Where are you going? Tell me what to do. Duck, okay. And it was so obvious. Cena was like,
these two.
He milked it so bad.
These two do not have the best chemistry.
No.
And it was honestly, it was the most apparent when John Cena gave him that back suplex.
You mean a side suplex, Michael Cole?
An attempted side suplex, because Braun was and also this is one of my least favorite things about Braun Strowman. I could write a book on why I hate Braun Strowman. Multiple books, entire series.
We're getting to it.
Every time John Cena took control of this match is because Braun Strowman ran at him and Cena moved out of the way. That is the only heat spot that Braun Strowman knows how to do.
Because that was it. That was literally
That's literally all he can do. And it happened at least 3 times in the match. So he runs at Cena. Cena moves out of the way. He posts himself. And Cena picks him up for an alleged side suplex. Maybe gets him like 3 inches off the ground.
Well, you missed something before this, though. You missed the first ring post attempt, which they made the mask by him hanging Braun on the ropes. When he was supposed to, I'm almost positive he was supposed to go into the ring post. But instead, Cena hung him on the ropes, and it looked really awkward. And I think it was just Braun not knowing to go into the ring post at that particular moment. They're like, oh, he hung him on the ropes. Yeah, that'll hurt his arms, right? Yeah. and they tried to cover up for it, but it was bad.
Although I will say my least favorite part of this match didn't even have anything to do with the people in the ring. It was the commentary.
Like usual.
It was so bad. Although the part that made me laugh really hard was when Booker T was like, because it was Booker T, Michael Cole, and Corey Graves. And at a point, Cena's in the corner and Braun Strowman's walking towards Cena, and Booker T's like, "This is a man."
Oh wait, no he's a monster.
And I'm like, very good, Booker T, yes.
Because you know he heard in his headset.
Monster among men.
You know he heard in his headset, "It's a monster, pal!" And and Michael Cole, seconds later, was made sure to make the tagline, "The monster among men."
I'm like, Jesus, these guys are so awful.
They're so scripted. And then this commercial break just cracked me the hell up. Because they do this slam, and then Michael Cole's like, "Braun Strowman is dominating. There's just no other way to say it. Live on Raw." And then the zoom in on Braun Strowman's nose booger as he's just sitting there. Because I don't know whether you've noticed this. One of the things I've hated about Braun is, and this is no knock on him, obviously, but his nose is just conducive for just looking right into it. And there's always something there.
The girth of his nostrils.
It's like there's obviously some appeal to it as a look, but every time that they zoom in on it, I'm like, oh God, am I gonna be sucked into a black hole?
It's a good thing that Braun Strowman countered the 5-knuckle shuffle, because if Cena did hit it, John Cena probably would have lost a hand.
Oh, let's talk about this spine buster though. That spine buster, I'm surprised that Cena didn't hurt his hand or his arm.
Yeah.
Because swear to God, that was not a flat spine buster. He landed square on his lower back. He did not take that flat, and I'm like, oh no, that was.
Well, John Cena is the king of not bumping correctly.
I almost feel like that's on Braun Strowman though. I feel like he did not lay Cena down properly for that, because that was rough, and I don't think I've seen Strowman do a spine buster since.
Maybe once or twice.
Yeah. Maybe somebody told him, "Don't do shit you don't know how to do."
But now let's discuss the finish of this match.
Well, we have the lead up to this finish before this matchup even finishes, because during the commercial break, John Cena does the worst Triple H steel step bump I've ever seen in my life. It was terrible. I mean, he literally went there, stopped, pushed the thing, and then fell over the stairs.
He hurt his fingers.
It was so bad. I'm like, leave that to Triple H. He at least knows how to pull it off.
Roman Reigns.
It was, and Roman Reigns too. But it was bad. And then he goes to take it, and then Cena goes to do Braun Strowman's choo-choo circle, and as he's running around, Brown Snowman throws it at the steel steps at Cena, which thankfully Michael Cole did not call a chair this time. And Cena goes down, but there's no disqualification, I thought. So we're thinking, oh, the referee, he must have seen that. There's no evidence that he didn't. There's no distraction.
I was thinking it was a no DQ match.
Me too. I was like, is this no disqualification? Do these referees ever matter in a good way in this company? Well, I found out the answer to that real quick.
He threw the steel steps in the ring and then did his boring power slam on the steps, and then the referee rings the bell. I'm like, dude, did you not see?
What?
You were looking right at him.
What?
When he hits him in the face with the steps.
So it was a cue disqualification, but I don't know. This is another one where it's just, why did they do this to these guys? Where is the sense in this?
Because they wanted to book a match, but both people were having pay-per-view matches, so they didn't want either of them to lose.
Right. So I understand why you do this and why you'd have the DQ finish. But then why do the spot outside? To make it seem like, oh, okay, I guess we're just doing it. And then, we're not.
Here's a possible explanation. When Braun Strowman hit John Cena with the steps in the face, YouTube stopped because they edited that part out. Maybe in real life that was so violent it was edited out, so the referee didn't even know that he hit him in the face with steel steps because time just stopped for a second.
It's either that or the equally credible theory that John Cone, who was the referee of this matchup, had just was it what was this 2017? This match took place. So we had 37. It's 21. 36 was 20. 35 was 19. 38. Or I'm sorry, I'm messing up. 35, 30, 36, 35, 34. So this was 33, right? 2017.
Yeah.
Well, you know what happened in WrestleMania 34, of course.
Yes, his son became a tag team champion with the Braun.
So I'm starting to think that maybe there was some collusion here going on. That maybe that with the knowledge that Nicholas was in the wings as a tag partner, he let Braun Strowman get away with a little bit more formalities.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, you know how John Cena and Braun Strowman are my favorite wrestlers? Nicholas is Sean's favorite wrestler.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right along there with Marco Stunt.
Yes.
They're my two favorite people of all time.
Same height, same age.
Yeah, pretty much. And, well, I hope not. Otherwise, that whole thing that Marco Stunt did at that indie show is somebody better look into that. But in any event, it's without talking about fellatio in the middle of a ring to a rubber prophylactic.
When they rehire Joey Ryan.
Yeah, well, let's not. We're uncensored, but we're not unmoralistic. That's weird.
You know, Joey Ryan should come back as his general manager and just do his best Johnny Ace impression and say, "Penis power."
Oh my God. No, if this is your subtle way of trying to have us book that on ACPW versus NWL, the answer is no, sir.
Absolutely.
The answer is no. You already put me through Santina Morella. You're not getting that pass.
Have a storyline where Santina and Joey Ryan are like doing the Vicky Guerrero Edge thing.
If you want penis power on, you're gonna have to make your own brand, sir. And you're gonna have to fantasy book that yourself, which honestly would be fun if we could find a way to make it work.
You say that, and actually, I was going to bring that up at the end of the show, but I guess we can briefly mention it now.
Would you like to actually do that, sir?
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the past year or so, Sean and Skyler have been doing their fantasy draft league.
Yep, the ACPW versus NWL to pretty good success.
Yes. So I was like, I've never been super crazy about fantasy booking, but I've been listening to a lot of their shows, and I was like, this sounds fun. I could do this. So I'm doing this.
You're joining in. So we're not positive on how we're gonna lay out the draft deal and who you'll be able to take and who you won't. But I think the idea is that you will be the third show, but you're gonna be doing this more on the Totally Awesome podcast on our sister channel, TAW Gaming.
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be fun because then you can come and listen to us and you can hop onto those shows, and then we can come over and listen to your show, and you'll get free tickets to ours, and we will probably have to pay for yours, but that's okay. It's we'll pay in Keebler cookies.
Pay me in Keebler elf flavored Monster Energy.
Well, I'll just I believe you have to home mix that. That's like a cold brew that you've got to steep yourself. But we can get you the materials. But in any event, God, these Keeblers are gonna kill me for saying that. But in any event. This is what is more interesting than this matchup, is talking about a theoretical demolition of Keebler elves and a back and forth. This match, with the finish of this match and the way that it all went, these two should never be in the proximity of each other ever again.
They were in the Elimination Chamber the following year.
And how did that go?
Braun Strowman beat everyone except Roman Reigns because Roman Reigns mega push. Everyone loves him. He's the big dog. He's not the bad guy or the good guy. He's the guy. Did I mention that everyone loves him?
And then, and that's a good, actually, that segue of what is a perfect example of what happened to this man's career. Is everything was going his way, and then Roman Reigns. Yeah. Although, in all fairness, Roman Reigns did return the favor in 2020. But let's talk about this dude, and we can say anything we want about this man. It's spotlight time, and the spotlight is our favorite recently released talent, Braun, the Brown Snowman Strowman. And
Braun Stupid.
And why don't you give us a little breakdown on your opinion of Braun Strowman? Say as much as you'd like in as many colorful words as you like.
Well, we've already used the color brown, which is a color that I very much associate with Braun Strowman.
Which is all he ever wore, actually, now that you mention it.
Remember when he first debuted and he wore those pants that looked like he had a giant stain on it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or that they were just ripped at the crotch that somebody tried to felt up and just, like, sew together. Yeah, oh, man. Rough.
It's like he drew an outline of how big he thought his penis was.
It's like he drew an outline. It's like he peed his pants and just drew, like in Sharpie, the outline of the stain that had taken place. And yeah, bro, that's a good way to set the tone for Braun Strowman.
Yes, the color brown and piss.
Yep.
So, I remember first hearing about him again around Night of Champions 2015 in that big tag team match. They brought him in, they made him part of the Wyatt family. At first I was like, oh, another Wyatt family member who has like a black sheep mask, the black sheep of the Wyatts. I was like, this could be cool. Then I saw him wrestle and I quickly changed my mind.
He wasn't ready. He was in no way ready for that spot.
He absolutely should have been an NXT first.
Yeah.
But they called him up to the main roster because Vince liked big man.
Yep. Vince is a big meter.
And I never really... And it was a weird time because no one liked him.
Yeah, because I think we all saw what was going to happen and what actually did happen.
Yeah, and then I remember it absolutely made me laugh during the 2016 Royal Rumble. Brock Lesnar and Braun Strowman were in the ring, and Brock throws a clothesline, and Strowman doesn't really bump like he's supposed to. So Brock just cold cocks him.
Oh, yeah.
And it was absolutely hysterical.
His head like looked like it fell off of the neck. That's how hard the beams. He beamed him hard.
Yes, if you're in the ring with Brock Lesnar, you better sell his shit or he's going to kill you.
I'm pretty sure what happened was that Strowman like either kneed Lesnar or he potatoed Lesnar first.
No, that was at the 2018 Royal Rumble.
Oh, excuse me.
Brett Knight with Pain.
Excuse me, the other time that Brock Lesnar beat the piss out of Braun Strowman.
For being a terrible wrestler.
Yep. And
so
that's Braun.
Yeah. Yeah. So then Braun when they do the draft, and Braun Strowman comes on Monday Night Raw.
Yep.
And we first see him because he beat up James Ellsworth, and I'm just like, I still don't care. But all of a sudden,
along with a bunch of other jobbers, week by week, they were actually starting to bring back squash matches, which I did appreciate. It's nice to have that from time to time, just to get somebody established.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, everyone it's like everyone was invited to a meeting that I wasn't invited to and didn't even know happened, where everyone just decided that they liked Braun Strowman now. It was the weirdest thing ever. I've never seen so many people just turn the corner on one person.
Well, you know what I think a part of that really is the fact that they were just giving him squash matches for so long. Because, yes, kind of like what you said earlier, how there's a whole bunch of fans who are like, just show me moves and, like, just show me fun things. And I will be like, yay, fun things. And then there's the other portion of the audience that's actually dissecting it. I think, psychologically speaking, there was definitely a portion of that audience that was registering the fact that he was just coming in, demolishing, leaving, like every other of these people who ever gets over. And finally, by the time that he really did get over with the crowd, it was just all those little things, and then everyone was suddenly like, oh, he's actually really good. Hooray! But really, the actual thing is that they just got hoodwinked into screaming his name.
They successfully brainwashed the majority of the audience into thinking that Braun Strowman was actually a good wrestler. I remember one person that was obsessed with Braun Strowman telling me, oh, Braun Strowman's a bad wrestler, huh? I saw a match where he did a kip-up and a Hurricane Rana. And I was like, dude, send me that match where he does these things.
I would love to see it.
So he sent me a video. It was like fan recording, and it was one of those where Big Show like pulled him up for the kip up.
Oh,
and it took, no effort. And I was like, well, Big Show clearly helped him on that. That wasn't that impressive. Where's the Hurricane Rana you were talking about? And the guy was like, oh, I stopped recording before he did that. And I was like, oh, that's convenient.
It's just, and even still, and this is actually, that's a really good thing. My credit to Braun Strowman is this. Michael Cole said something in that matchup that made me laugh. because it's actually not incredibly true for Braun, because he really couldn't do this, but, and I quote, he does things guys his size shouldn't do. And I thought about it, and I said, in actuality, Braun never really did things that he shouldn't do until later on when he started doing dives and things like that, and nearly, who was the most recent one where it was a triple threat match he was in that he nearly decapitated himself on a dive?
I don't remember.
That was just recent. That was just before he got released. I want to say, it wasn't at Mania. It was, I can't remember. I can't remember,
I don't remember either.
But
no, WrestleMania Backlash. Remember when he did that senton off the apron?
Yes, that's what I'm talking. Yes, that's it. That's the one. And that was the end of Braun Strowman.
And he tragically died, and they fired his carcass.
Yep, and that was but you know, he would do more of that stuff later on, but prior to that point, he was just coming in, beating people, and leaving. He wasn't doing dives. It's one of my big critiques about people like Lance Archer, who are so big, but then they're doing like 16 moonsaults and dives and all this sort of stuff. Like, for example, a good balance is a guy like Keith Lee, or the guy who used to be Donovan Dijak, who they turned into Dominic Dijakovic, and where you would see it occasionally, but it wouldn't be all the time from these big guys. And Braun was, but Braun is good at finding that balance, A, because he couldn't do any of that, and B, because you don't need guys that size doing that kind of stuff. But then he started doing that kind of stuff, and every time he did, it looked like somebody was about to die.
Yes. Remember when he tried to do like a top rope splash at Fastlane 2017 on Roman Reigns, and everyone was like, oh God.
Yeah. And that was, I think, my big problem with him, is that there'd be these moments where you could see why people would like the dominance and why people would cater to the screaming mostly, and the big power slam, and the power slam finished 1, 2, 3, but then they just destroyed the power slam and his image, and along with WWE's whole attitude of, we can't get anybody actually over because nobody can be bigger than WWE, they just beat him back in the powder.
Yep. And it was so bizarre because again, I do not think Braun Strowman is a good wrestler, and he's just big. That's exactly what Vince McMahon looks for sometimes, someone who's not that good, but he's big and ugly. It might just be what you said, them not wanting to make someone more popular than their own brand, but this dude was like tailor-made for Vince McMahon.
Yeah. But then they had him job in the Elimination Chamber. Then they had him win Money in the Bank. And dear God, what a calamity that was. I'm going to cash in my Money in the Bank after this match. How'd that go?
And then gets F5'd on the floor and does nothing.
But at least he won the Greatest Royal Rumble and won a green WWE Championship that we legitimately never saw again.
Yeah.
And he's not even known for that Rumble. Titus O'Neil got more over because of that Royal Rumble, because he slid and tripped under the damn ring.
Imagine winning a giant 50-man match for a green belt, and your victory in that was overshadowed by a dude falling over.
And fuck it up. Yeah, that's a perfect thing. And that's really Braun's biggest accomplishment. Because then he goes around and does nothing. He becomes a lackey to Drew McIntyre, or Drew McIntyre became his lackey with him and Ziggler for no reason. He turned heel for no reason. They realized that was dumb, turned back babyface. Then Roman Reigns didn't want to do COVID, and so he got to face Goldberg.
Got shoehorned into an awful match with Goldberg.
In two guys who never learned how to wrestle, who got over, facing each other in a match where neither learned how to wrestle. And then, surprise, surprise, it was a poorly, sloppily executed finisher fest.
Yes.
And
then he had a swamp fight.
Oh, God. Oh, good God.
And started doing the weird laugh awkwardly, stare at the camera, I'm in love with Alexa Bliss, apparently, and now Alexa Bliss is what she is today storyline.
I forgot about that, their whole Mixed Match Challenge thing.
Oh.
Remember them? That was their whole first interaction with him and Alexa Bliss, was when they did the mixed match, and then they were kind of teasing chemistry between the two of them. And That was, God, what a weird time. They were airing that on Facebook. What a weird deal that was.
Yeah.
Miz and Asuka won once.
Miz and Asuka.
That was so strange. What a weird time that was. But it was little things like that that were really hurting Braun's image, you know? And then it just
Let me tell you the exact moment that I knew that he was never going to go anywhere. Do you remember that awful Crown Jewel Saudi Arabia show with Shane McMahon being crowned the best in the world?
With him and Brock?
No, with him, it was that tournament. It was the tournament
with Braun.
Shane won, got inserted.
Yeah, Shane won the best in the world, but the main event was Braun and Brock.
No, the main event was the DX versus Kane and Undertaker match.
Oh, good God. That match is rough.
The Braun Strowman Brock Lesnar match was before that.
Oh, right. Just to whet the appetite.
You can argue that Brock Lesnar beating him in that not very good match at No Mercy 2017 was the beginning of the end. I felt that, like, the way that they did it, Braun Strowman still had a little bit of credibility.
He had a chance. He still had a chance to be okay.
But Brock was champion forever, and then he lost to Roman Reigns, and then Roman Reigns had to relinquish the belt because of leukemia. So then they had Brock versus Braun Strowman at Crown Jewel for the vacant title.
For the vacant belt.
Like, you have to put it on Braun Strowman.
This was the time.
Yep. This was the time. And as much as I hated Braun Strowman, I was like, they have to put the belt on him. Because Brock was champion for over a year. Why would you give it back to him? There's no way giving it back to Brock makes any kind of sense. What do? Brock F5'd him 100 times and won the title back.
And that was it.
And then immediately after that, Braun Strowman wins the Raw Tag Team titles with a 10-year-old.
Yep. And no, you're totally right. That was the moment. That was going to be the moment. And I think that everybody knew after that the Braun Strowman experiment was over. Yeah. It was over. It didn't matter. You know, if Braun... I personally think that Braun Strowman died when he chose Nicholas. Because... here's why. Because it went from... we value you in our highest position to where in a theoretical actual company that isn't just making money off blood money and TV networks, but in an actual wrestling company, we're entrusting you with the highest position that you're the one bringing in the gates. You're the one bringing in the fans. You're the guy that we are centering the show around as the main event attraction. You went from that to, I'm going to pick a 10-year-old and win the tag belts.
On the biggest show of the year.
On the biggest show of the year. You went from we believe in you to be the company carrier to we believe in you to team up with a child.
And the guy that they chose and wanted to be the company carrier lost in the main event, and the only time the crowd cheered during that main event was when that guy lost.
Yeah. 34.
WWE, everybody.
WrestleMania 34, folks. It was... My whole thing was this, and my thing is this with Braun. They made him into something, whether he was any good or not. But it is criminal what WWE did to him after that.
Let me put it this way.
I genuinely feel bad, even if he's not that good of a wrestler. You gotta feel for somebody who was riding that kind of wave, and then he must have said something backstage that got him heat. That's the only thing I can think of.
Let me put it this way. I don't think there's a person on this planet that hates Braun Strowman as a wrestler as much as I do. Even I think it's ridiculous what they did to him.
He got a hack job. He definitely got a hack job.
I do, like, I'm grateful that he was never super big.
Fair.
Because I hate him.
Fair.
But I still, like, it makes no sense that he was never, it makes no sense to me that he never got bigger than he was. That they never did anything with it.
Yeah, and the fact that the only Universal Championship he won was only because Roman Reigns wasn't there. Once again getting a opportunity because Roman Reigns isn't there.
Yeah.
And to beat Goldberg. And then, what did you think, just while we're on the subject of 2020 Braun Strowman, because it was a fucking smorgasbord. What did you think of their match at Money in the Bank? Bray Wyatt and Braun.
Well, it was at Extreme Rules.
Oh, I'm sorry. Extreme Rules.
Horror show at Extreme Rules.
Christ.
Also, it was infamous for the eye for an eye match with, they should have named it tennis ball for a tennis ball match.
Wait a minute. No, because I think This was no, it had to have been Money in the Bank because the Swamp fight was at Extreme Rules.
Yeah, Money in the Bank was Braun Strowman versus John Morrison in the minutes.
No, that wasn't that early. It couldn't have been that early. Because there was a match between him and Bray Wyatt that was just a regular match before their Swamp fight.
Oh, I think that might have been Money in the Bank. I was thinking about Backlash.
Yeah, Backlash they did that, which I shut off in the middle of the Turkey Leg shenanigans, which was over the fact that they destroyed Braun Strowman's car, and were then the four of them afraid that Braun Strowman was going to go Braun at them. So, anyway. I'm
not going to lie. The Braun Strowman versus Bray Wyatt match, I still to this day have not watched that Money in the Bank pay-per-view.
You haven't missed out on anything. It honestly wasn't bad for what they were going for. But, it is before, they didn't go cinematic with it. Let me put it that way. Yeah. They did not go cinematic with it, and it was better on that basis. But then they went with the Swamp fight and the rest of, then nobody cared about Braun Strowman anymore. And then they get into the cage fight.
For some reason, the Universal title was not on the line in the Swamp fight.
Thank Christ. Thank Christ. Well, I threw him into the Lake of Reincarnation. I mean, the Swamp. I guess I win the belt. What a way to win that.
It's the Universal title. How else would that belt change hands?
Well, this is a Universal title, of course, so it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to have the Candy Cane belt exchanged in such a venue.
Let me put it this way. It's not the dumbest thing they've done with that belt.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the worst. But in any event, and then we'll talk about his final feud of significance, not including his I'm randomly in this triple threat title match. The reason we call him Braun Stupid. Braun Strowman versus Shane McMahon in a steel cage with toolboxes in 5-gallon buckets on the top of the cage because wrestling.
Because this is a kid's show.
And the whole concept of the match was that Shane McMahon very obviously faked an injury, so he couldn't compete and was trying to have Elias and whatnot get demolished. So then they just call Braun stupid. And they keep calling him stupid, and then they end up having this cage match, and then the promo is this is for all the people who have ever been called stupid, like me, Braun Stupid.
Not even denying that he's not stupid.
Yeah, no, not even once denying that he himself was, in fact, the spokesman for the group. And
it's like Shane's like, you're stupid, and I'm gonna beat you, and Braun's like, no, I'm gonna beat you.
Yeah, he's like, I know, and I'm gonna beat you instead.
But man. I just think that the perfect way to encapsulate Braun's entire career is with this. He won the world title one time, 2 years too late, because someone else got sick and left in front of no one.
Yeah.
That is depressing.
Yeah, if you really want to put the feather on the cap or the cherry on top of the sundae that is Braun Strowman's career, his match with Goldberg at WrestleMania pretty much is the pinnacle of what Braun Strowman was all about. And it's a shame because it could have been so much more, but they deliberately chose and made sure that it wasn't.
Yeah.
And good luck, Brown Snowstar, in whatever you do now. And
And I remember when the podcast me, you, and Skyler did, where we were talking about how, because during the pandemic, during the early days of the pandemic, he trash talked a bunch of the scene.
Yeah.
So they're not going to want him.
Yeah, and for the asking price he's probably going to ask, which is probably an exorbitant amount, if Alexa Bliss is charging $600 for 16 seconds of her on a goddamn swing set, I can only imagine what the booking fee that Braun is going to try for his asking price to be. And honestly, does he bring anything to the table anywhere?
Okay, I hate to cut you off, but Skyler just texted, he put, don't I know how to pick Braun Strowman matches?
Well, sir, the Bay Area Brawler finds his way into the podcast after all. Yeah. And perhaps it'll be a promo from JoshAgeddon onto Skyler for choosing this instead of the other way around, because Skyler's got plenty of promos to cut on you, sir. But he tried to ban you from Monster for a week.
Yes.
You're going to just take that lightly?
Unsuccessfully, I might add.
Because JoshAgeddon is a man among monsters. And that meaning... And I think that is the perfect way to end this show.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So the man among monsters, JoshAgeddon, this was a fun show.
Yeah.
As always, this is a fun show. Thank you for coming along and doing the last-minute substitution and tagging in for Skyler. Great to have you on, as always.
And he gave me a thank you by giving me a John Cena Braun Strowman match that ended in a weird disqualification. So,
boy, does he know you like a book.
I know where you sleep, Skyler.
That's right. And he knows where our Keebler elves are, which is even more horrifying than one would admit. So don't expect that paperwork to stop anytime soon, buddy. But now it is time to take our first commercial break. When we get back, we have got a huge ACPW versus NWL show. We've got our July shows and the 10-person slot roster expansion. And we will have more updates next week on the inclusion of JoshAgeddon, the name of his show, what he's going to call it, who he's the kind of people he's going to draft. We're going to have more information for you then, so stay tuned. JoshAgeddon here. I am your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, and we will be right back right after this.